Hello?
Yo, 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 Tawl, what's up, man?
Not too much. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Alright, so, I just muted my music. So, refresh me really fast. What league are you in? You said Plat, right?
I'm in Diamond right now.
Okay. And what matchup would you like to focus on, or would you like just kind of like a broad all three? I would, if I had to recommend something, I would say do one.
I'm not really looking to work on anything. Just kind of the general mechanics again. Like I used to play this a lot, but kind of took a year off. So
Okay.
just getting back into the habits and learning the basics. The opening 10 minutes, so I don't die to sixlings when I have 8 or something. Something stupid.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Sounds good. Do you have any replays that you'd want to go over, or do you want to just do live games and try to find some opponents throughout the stream?
Like I can show you a couple of my replays if you'd like.
Yeah.
If you want to do random, doesn't matter to me either.
Let's do it, man. Give me load up that replay. Let's do it. See what we see. The biggest thing I'm going to tell you though is like right before we even go into it is I'll probably be focusing a lot on your like saturation and the timing that you take expansions and like your scouting. That's those things. They're all very important at how quickly you can saturate, and scouting is a big part of it about knowing how quickly you can saturate without dying. And there's not too much like things like I'm not even gonna try and explain it, scouting like super in depth. It's really basic, and if you break it down to a basic level, it makes it really easy to understand when you can and cannot drone. And we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of looking for. When to sacrifice an overlord, when to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do I find you to invite you?
All right, so we can do this two ways. You can either open up the GM, or we'll just do the GM ladder. It's faster. So you can look at my stream if you want, just for a reference. Just in the top right, click.
I just closed it so I didn't hear the echo.
Okay, okay. Oh, anyways, just in the top right, click your like little player icon, and then it'll open your profile. And then click on ladders, and at the bottom of that, you'll see Grandmaster. Click on that, and then scroll into like into the middle of it to rank 82, and that's where I am on my account. Just and then you can double click my name there and message me.
It keeps opening your profile.
So do you have my profile open right now?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so
I just closed it thinking I had to go backward.
oh, okay, so if you're at my profile, if you right click my portrait now, there should be drop down for whisper, I believe. If that doesn't work, I can just tell you how to get in the group chat. Alright, cool.
I think I sent to you.
Nice. Alright, so I'm going to make you group leader. And just go to your replays once we're in a party. And then you can host a replay with others. Oh, nice. You invited me. Perfect. Okay. Because you have to be leader to do this. Just load up a replay, whatever one you want to watch. And then before you start the game in the lobby, promote me to host in the lobby so I can control the timer on the game. And then we can get this replay going.
Do you want where I win or when I lose?
Either one. It doesn't matter. Whatever you think is the most relevant to like the way you normally play, I would say.
Okay, well this one actually lasts longer than 5 minutes, so let's go with this one.
Okay.
I think I hit watch with others.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. All right, then just right-click my name and promote me to leader here, and then perfect. All right, nice. Let's do this. Let's do it. Okay, so got a nice Zergris Protoss. I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit at the very start. So the biggest thing, actually, I'm gonna just talk about this really quick. The biggest thing I would ever say to someone that is trying to improve their macro with Zerg is you need to get yourself in a rhythm. Basically, always making your larva on your hatchery. The best way you can do this is always have your hatchery hotkeyed, and always rotate your fingers like on the keyboard to go to that hotkey and just keep rotating your fingers on SD, SD, SD to just make drones. And if you can make it to where you do this so much that even when you're not even thinking about playing StarCraft, like let's say you get sidetracked and you're thinking about something else, or you're thinking about what strategy you should do, or what your opponent's doing, or you get sidetracked by a Reaper in your base or something like that, you're always muscle memory just slamming the keyboard on SD, 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 SD. That is like the best thing you can do, because so many players in lower leagues will suffer from being distracted and just ceasing all macro for long periods of time.
Yeah, that happens to me.
Yeah, so just to get yourself, try to start just always doing that, even when you're not even doing anything and you're just watching yourself go SD, SD, SD. Do it a lot, and you'll start getting a habit of just doing it, even when you're not even thinking about it, and it'll help a lot at overall speeding up your macro. I like that you drone scouted too in this game, because this guy's random. Because it could be anything.
It's random to start with.
Yeah, I would say drone scouting is not required if he's not random, but it helps a lot if he is. Alright, so your first Overlord, I'm going to pause it really fast. Your first Overlord path should always be right about, going to like right here, from your base. Like, you always want to go between your opponent's ramp to their main and their natural. Because what you'll do, what you'll do if you do that is you'll be able to see, for one, if your opponent expanded really fast, and two, if they did or did not, you can poke in and just take a peek at the ramp and see what's going on. Because if you play Zerg, everyone's going to wall their ramp. The only ones who won't wall the ramp are going to be other Zerg players, and other Zerg players. If you still would scout the same way, because you would see, did they or did they not take a natural, and obviously if they didn't, they're all-inning you. If they did, they could be playing macro. But it's always just going to get a peek on the natural and the ramp. But your drone's doing it anyway, so it's all good. And then after you would like peek with your Overlord, that's when you could pull back and you know, like skirt your Overlord around like a cliff or something.
Should I have kept my drone in there longer?
No. If I were you, I would just have scouted with a drone to see what race he is, and then immediately go back to mining minerals. And you saw he opened up Gateway Robo, which is pretty standard. It means he's not proxying you. There's nothing crazy going on. Your Overlord should be seeing the natural, so once your Overlord sees that he's got a natural down, you should know 100%. There is no possible way there is anything weird on the map, and this is when your Overlord should be like poking into the ramp to go, okay, what's he doing? And for instance, let's say your Overlord did poke the ramp right now, okay? We see a Stargate, we see a chrono boosted core, and we see one gateway. Right now, I would be immediately thinking, okay, this guy is probably going to make an Oracle, and he's probably going to throw down multiple gateways quickly in this game, because he's going to probably try and do an aggressive warp gate timing with the core. Because the only reason why he would instead of chrono boosting probes and making a lot of economy, he's actually chrono boosting tech and making warp gate really fast. The only reason why he would do that is because he's going to attack you. Because there's no reason otherwise that he would get warp gate that fast. Because all it does, if he's going to be defensive, is he has a worse economy now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so back on your side of things, a big thing, when looking at your own economy, one of the biggest things you can do is make sure you have to be very like specific about this. Every time you get to full saturation, re-rally your hatcheries to your natural, which you did. You do have it right now. It is re-rallied, but you have oversaturation by 3 drones, 1 on the gas, 2 on the mineral line in your main, and they're actually doing basically very little. The gas one is doing literally nothing, and the mineral one's doing very little. It's saving you like 0.1 or 0.2 of a second on far patches. It's really inefficient, and if you only have 24 drones in total, 3 of those drones are not mining efficiently, or is a really big deal. The other thing is a lot of people mine way too much gas way too early. I understand a lot of people like to get Zergling speed, which is totally acceptable. I approve. It makes defending attacks easier. But if you're not going to go for a Baneling or a Roach all-in, mining gas over 100 is a waste of drones. And yeah, it really slows down your overall economy Because right now, what you actually have is you have 6 drones in the main that are not really mining what you need right now. It's just inefficient mining.
Is that in general, or is that just kind of Zerg versus Protoss?
It's in general. The only matchup I would say you should still just keep mining gas all the time on if you're going to play standard is Zerg vs Zerg, because Zerg vs Zerg always turns into like the Ling Bane phase or the Ling Roach phase, because you know Zerg really walls off. So Zerg vs Zerg is all about both players making units, and just if you have enough, you're fine. If you don't have enough, you just die. So in Zerg vs Zerg, it's okay to keep mining gas, but against Terran and against Protoss, if you want to expand, and if you're not planning on all-inning, don't mine so much gas so quickly. Yeah, it puts you in a situation where you basically right now need to do something with this gas to make it worth your while. And if it just starts baking up, it's not worth your while. It's actually just wasted resources, and it's actually slowing down the amount of drones you could have instead.
Okay.
Alright, and then now your opponent has a forge. Also, a good place that I would put an Overlord, I would just do this like in every matchup, even against Protoss, would be as soon as the Overlord backs up from scouting him, on this map, put him on that high ground right in front of the base, and try to always find that kind of a position on every single map. Because even if the Overlord does die, you will still see what they're actually doing in front of their base, and if they're moving out or not, what they're putting there. If it, like, for instance, if an Overlord was there, you would have also seen he has a forge, and he's making another gateway, and that could tell you a few things. Like, for this guy's build is a little awkward, I will say, but if I were you and I were to have read earlier, we saw a chrono boosted core, and now we see a forge, you could look at it and go, all right, this guy now, since he has really fast warp gate tech and he has a forge, this could mean he might want to go for a weapon upgrade, and he's going to go for like really quick weapon, like really quick warp gate up units with upgrades. Or it could mean he wants to, like, because now you also saw a Stargate. Forge and Stargate together combined a lot of times can mean photon cannons into Sky Toss type shit, like just a lot of air units, and he actually just wants to go for Stargate units with cannons to cover his base. It's a little confusing because he chrono boosted his warp gate upgrade if you actually went for Sky Toss. So that's kind of how it goes. You gotta kind of like interpret what the range of their build is capable of and take your best guess at what they're probably going to do. It does take experience to like know this, but yeah, it just helps having an idea. And the best thing you can do is, like I said, leave an Overlord around so you have a good idea.
Okay.
But so okay, so far I've been talking a lot. I just want to ask, you have any questions so far about anything you're unsure of?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. I like that you're building a Spore because you know he has a Stargate. One kind of rule of thumb for Zerg though is you always want to stay. You always kind of want to be like okay. This is really important. This is very important, and I'm going to try to explain this in a way that's really simplified, and I'm kind of just I'm thinking about how I should say it. Scouting, like we just talked about with Overlords, is very important. Just leaving your Overlords around their natural, okay? Just like not even all of them, just one Overlord. To know when your opponent takes a natural is huge, because the general rule of thumb for Zerg is if you're not planning on all-inning your opponent or doing something very aggressive, which you're not this game, you're macroing. As soon as your opponent takes another base, you should probably be taking another base of your own. And you should always +1 above what they have. So the second, if you're going to play macro, if you had less gas banked up and you had more minerals to work with earlier, a better way to have played this game for you would have been, as soon as you see your opponent taking a natural nexus, you take your third base. And you're just droning your ass off. And you can still have Zergling speed, that's totally fine. But you would have taken your third as he takes his natural, so you stay one base up. Rather than by the time he's basically fully saturated on his natural, you then start your third. You know what I mean? Your third's just super late. And then also, if you're going to play this style that I'm talking about more, a good time to take your gases would be something like this. You mine You take your first gas early, you get Zergling speed, then you stop mining gas. You can put your drones back on that gas when you have about, let's say, 10 drones on your natural mineral line, because you would then have a very powerful economy which could do something like take a third really quick. And if you keep making drones beyond that, you would take gases like 2, 3, and 4 when you have 16 drones on both mineral lines, like you're fully saturated both mineral lines, and you're still making more drones because you're not really gonna ruin your own economy if you take the gases then, because you're basically, the goal is to fully saturate your mineral lines as fast as possible and then take your gases. Unless your build was like, I'm gonna go for the fastest mutas ever, which is kind of sketchy because it's just, builds like that are not always the best because they put you in a situation where it's kind of all in. But yeah, standard macro goal, number one goal: saturate every mineral line you can as fast as possible, and then fill in the gas.
Okay.
And the best thing you can do is get to 3 base economy as quick as possible. The 3 base economy is like the sweet spot. And then I would just say you got to be really meticulous about properly saturating, because you still got that one drone on gas oversaturated, and you have one drone on your natural oversaturated and one undersaturated on the gases, and then there are 7 drones oversaturated on. Or you pulled some off though, which is good. But now all your mineral line, your main and your natural are a little undersaturated. Those numbers actually are very important. You got to make sure they're always on point, like exactly what they say they're supposed to be, because it does help a lot with perfect saturation. And then now, with seeing that your opponent has a 3rd base, this is should be your cue to go, okay, time to take 4th base. Because what could happen with if you take a 4th base right now is, you don't have to necessarily saturate it right away, but you could start transferring your drones from bases that are getting mined out to your 4th. And if you want to, you could add a little bit of, you could add maybe 10 drones to the 4th rather than fully saturating it, and then just transfer more drones to it, etc., etc.
Sorry if I'm quiet. I'm writing stuff down as you talk.
No, it's all good. Yeah, everyone's different, and if writing stuff down works for you, then by all means, that's actually a great idea. Also, the other thing too you can do, a lot of times people can be unsure, I guess, but whenever I do coaching lessons with any student, I always upload the VOD to my YouTube channel later, so you can always go back as well and rewatch this, which is why I mute my music, because I don't want the VOD getting muted by copyright crap. So you can always just rewatch this if you want to go back for reference and stuff like that too.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, and then I'm gonna, after this game, I want to just kind of show you what I mean. I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean about properly saturating, because right now we're at 9 minutes, and you're at 131 supply. With proper saturation, you can honestly max out on like an army like Hydra Ling by about 8.5 minutes. You could be 200 supply already if you just made drones a little bit more efficiently earlier on. And then
that's a big difference.
Yeah, if you were to just attack your opponent with max that much stuff, you would just crush him on a move, because you just have way too much. So this is my philosophy on Sky Toss as well. If your opponent starts going Sky Toss, it can be very difficult to deal with if you allow it to get to a point where they just start building up more and more units, because Sky Toss actually is insanely cost efficient. The less you micro against it, and what I mean is, if you just send Hydras an auto attack into Sky Toss, your Hydras will take so much more damage than the Sky Toss army will, so much faster. Your Hydras will die at a way quicker rate if you just straight up engage it. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, there are 2 options to deal with Sky Toss. Number 1 is you go Hydras with Infestors, or number 2 is you go Mass Corruptors. And
I kind of do a hybrid of both after I saw that there.
Okay. So I like that you have Hydra Infestor. It's really good. But if you go Hydra Infestor and Corruptor, it's not as good. The reason why is because you have to do something synergy with either unit to make it work actually properly. And the way you make corruptors work is you have to always be upgrading Carapace on the corruptor, because it really reduces the amount of damage like carrier, like pretty much every single unit Protoss has in the air, other than a Tempest basically. Carapace will help a lot at managing the damage you take, and you also need as many corruptors as possible to make it work properly. So you can't really be affording to spend gas on things like Hydras and Infestors if you're going corruptors. And the other way is if you go Hydras and Infestors, you want to have you know, weapon upgrades in your Hydras. You want to have enough Infestors, which I would say is so you have 6 right now, which is good. I would say that's bare minimum. You want to have honestly like 12 to 16 Infestors, and then you want to max out on Hydras as fast as possible, because the reason why is because Hydras won't put themselves in a compromised spot as easy as Corruptors would if you're going both of them. Because what'll happen if you go both of them is your Corruptors will ball up and they will move in. If you you know, if you attack into the army of Skytoss and you start focus firing his units, your Corruptors will ball up and they will go forward and they will start getting annihilated by the Archon, Storm, his air units in general. And you won't have enough of them to actually make an impact to like really do serious damage. They will just literally die. Corruptors are like a cascading unit where it's either you have a lot or you win, or you just never had enough and they just did nothing. And
so avoid Corruptors.
The Corruptors are good, but you have to only commit to Corruptors if you're going to do that. If you go Infestor Hydra, you commit to that. You basically do one or the other. With Corruptors, you could go like upgraded Zerglings and Corruptors. So like Zerglings could be the things you kill buildings with and kill bases with and kill units with, and Corruptors kill the army. But if you go Infestor Hydra, you literally just go Infestor Hydra, and the way you would micro that is you try your best. This is the more difficult way to do it, but you have to do it this way against Skytoss. You try your best to make sure there are no High Templars in his army. You can do this by making Overlords and spawning a bunch of Changelings and running forward, even flying Overseers for like a few Overseers forward to just see if they're under a mothership or something like that. But if you know there are no Templar in his army, High Templar in his army, you move forward with the Hydras, and at the same time you neural parasite every single carrier you can. Every air unit gets neural parasited. Because the reason why this is so good is because you have to look at supply, and there is a supply cap in this game. It's 200, but one carrier is 6 supply. One infestor is 2 supply. So an infestor is 1/3 of the amount of supply of a carrier, and one infestor can lock out a carrier for the entire fight. So you can have 10 supply locking out 30 supply of his, which is very realistic. Like if you have like 12 infestors and he has 12 carriers, you could literally reverse every one of them. But you can only do this if he has no High Templar, because if he has High Templar, what'll happen is if you move forward, he's going to storm you over and over and over, and he's going to feed back your infestors, and all your infestors and all your Hydras are going to die. So in a situation like that, you'd have to do something like, okay, where are the High Templar? I need to try my best not to engage his army, but instead to fungal growth his army from range and try to like just goop him up and pick him apart. That's how you'd have to actually do it. And as soon as you actually kill the Templar, then you could do what we just talked about with it, neuroparasiting and moving forward. Because if you just auto attack into the army and you don't actually use your spells properly, Skytoss will annihilate your army. It's pretty ridiculous how quickly Skytoss kills you. And the Protoss player is literally not microing. I'm not even kidding. The Protoss player is going to A-move you and kill you if you don't actually use your infestors. If you're going Infestor Hydra. It's pretty ridiculous.
The new zombie toss?
Yeah, it seriously is. Like, Skytoss is very A-move centric. Alright. Also, the other thing too about Corruptor is you have to really maintain focus firing your opponent's actual like carriers and their mothership. With Hydras, you can seriously just auto attack, because Hydras have a way faster attack speed than a Corruptor does. So Hydras could actually, and also with Hydras you're going to be neural parasiting too, so there should be way less interceptors flying around. Your Hydras could kill all the, like, you know, whatever interceptors are not currently neuraled by the carrier. They could kill them quickly and then move forward, and that's why A-moving with the Hydras would be easy. But if you A-move with the Corruptor, You will never kill the interceptors before your corruptors all die. To just the interceptors killing you, because the corruptors have such a slow attack speed, they'll be wasting a bunch of damage. All right, so I like that you're sending changelings forward. It's really it's in situations like this where both players have a death ball. You never want to just run blindly and go, oh well, I just ran into a bad fight and I'm dead. So I like that you scouted first with changelings. It's very important. So you know you're okay to engage without actually just getting run over. I'm gonna slow it down. I want to see how this how you engage this fight. So I'm gonna pause it one time really fast. Your opponent right now only has one observer. This observer is currently following the mothership. He also has no Templar. He basically he has 4 adepts on the ground and all air units. And in these air units there are he has 11 carriers, and that's the most important one we're going to look at. He has 11 carriers. In your army, you have 6 infestors, and you have neural parasite, which is really good. So what you want to do, what you would do to make your life easier in a situation like this, would be, for one, I would not recommend engaging the area where you're at right now, because you're in kind of a semi-choke point, because if you start fighting if his air moves a little bit forward and he starts fighting you, he's going to be over a cliff. And if you fight over a cliff, half of your army won't even be able to fight. It's going to be like waddling around being like, I can't get range on attacking the air units, whereas all of his air units are going to be attacking the whole time. This is also going to make it really hard to neural parasite because you're not going to have a lot of ground to work with. So I would definitely not recommend fighting here. I hope you back up from this spot. The best thing you can do would be to back up a little bit and go to your creep. It's actually really good to patiently break Skytoss by spreading your creep, which your creep is actually surprisingly not bad. It's doing well. Like, you have half the map covered, more or less, which is really good. So you have a good staging point to use right now. You could do something like make 10 or 20 spore crawlers on the creep, like let's say right here. You can make a bunch of spore crawlers right there, and you can just keep spreading the creep further and further forward. And then if he were to engage you and attack your army, all it takes is one fight. So you want to make it work the best for you. Like, seriously, you kill Skytoss once, you win the game, basically. If you just fight on creep, you not only do you have vision, but if you have spore crawlers there as well, you also have what's basically Zerg bunkers, because every spore crawler has 300 hit points, which is more than 3 times the amount of a Hydralisk. And spore crawlers also have passive armor, which they actually, it's just 1 armor, but it doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a deal. They have 3 times the amount of health of a Hydra, and they also do good DPS. They do They do actually as much damage as the Hydra does at full upgrades, with a slightly less attack speed. They're just good to have. They're very good, and they're no supply cost. So they're very powerful to have in your army against a mass air army like this. And you can do something like, and also they give you detection against the mothership. So if all your overseers die somehow, you still have detection because you have spores. It's just really, really good. Right, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to see how you do it. So, I'm going to back this up one time, and I want you to watch it one more time. If you look at his army, and you look at your army, where I'm actually going to back it up right now. You guys are both maxed at this point. Your army, because of where you chose to fight, like we were talking about, it's in a choke point. He's on the cliff. You can't fully engage. So if you take the fight at this exact spot, you are forced to fight the way you just did, because you can't just run under him, because you will guaranteed die if you do that. Because you'll be running into just DPS, and your units will die before they do anything. But watch really closely what happens here. Look at his supply, and look at your supply. You are bleeding Hydras about like 3 Hydras per second, or like 2 Hydras per second. Or like a Corruptor, replace a Corruptor with that same example. So, the reason why I'm saying this is because your army you've chosen to engage into a position where it's really hard for your army to get on him, and your army is spending all of its time attacking interceptors, and it's because you're forced. Again, it's because of where you chose to engage. You're forced to do this. Like, you're actually doing it all right. You're doing better than I expected, to be honest.
I let them attack. I wasn't sure if that's the right way. I figured if they kill the interceptors, then carriers are nothing.
It's only good to do that if you can actually get a bunch of neurals on the carriers as well. I'm gonna back it up one more time, and I'm gonna look at something really fast here. So the best thing you can do if you have Hydra Infestor like this is you neural parasite. Like, you have a good position to engage, first of all, like we just talked about earlier, where you can have spores, you can have creep, all like an open area, and you can like focus more on like, you know, pressuring the Protoss and into like, let's just say you have creep in an open area like right here on his expansion, and you put the fight there. So it's either he defends his Nexus or he backs up and the Nexus dies. And if he chooses to fight you there, you're the one dictating when the fight happens, and it's an open area. It would be better for you to do something like that rather than rushing the fight on a cliff. But look at when you neural parasite the carriers. Look at the loadout of the carrier. So every carrier has 8 interceptors. Now you do neural parasite, which is really good. That's very important. But sorry, I got a cough. Okay, let's look at the carriers that get neural parasited and see how many interceptors they have left by the time it happens. All right, so we have. The mothership is neuroparasited, and one of the carriers is neuroparasited. The carrier that is neuroparasited it's on the left side of the mothership, a little bit. You can see the tentacle kind of going into it. That carrier has 0 interceptors currently. The carrier on the right that you just neuroparasited has only 2 interceptors currently. It's nice to get rid of the interceptors. But if your plan is to you do need to neuroparasite, but if your plan is to neuroparasite, it's not necessarily the best if you've already spent so much time fighting the interceptors and then neuroparasite. Does that make sense? You're allowing him to have maximum DPS for a long time, and then by the time you neuroparasite and remove his carrier completely, you've already eliminated that carrier's DPS, which means you've already fought the interceptors for too long.
Okay.
Yeah, like all these carriers that you're knurling are pretty much empty. They're like dry. So
yeah, I just randomly clicked.
Yeah. No, it's not about knurling the carriers that are full and not the ones that are empty. It's about timing your engage well enough to where to giving yourself more open space to work with, to where as the engage starts, like as the Hydras start firing at interceptors, you also are knurling his carriers like the second it starts. In this fight, there was we'll watch it one more time. I'll do it faster this time. I just want to count how many seconds go by before neural happens on the carriers, because it should be happening like within 2 seconds of as the Hydras engage interceptors. Within like 1 or 2 seconds, you are also neural parasiting the carriers. And the reason why you would do this is because you would have changelings running around his army or whatever, like we talked about earlier, where you know there are no Templar currently in his army that are going to storm you if you take this fight. Because a lot of players, I just want to say one more thing. Sorry, I know I'm kind of tangenting a little bit here, but a lot of players feel like they're rushed to take a fight in this game, and you're really not. This game is seriously much more about patience than it is about rushing to kill your opponent when the game turns into a situation like this. If you're playing Terran and you're playing a guy who's like, I'm medevac dropping everywhere and I'm multitasking you to death, then yes, it's all about multitasking and it's about how many actions you can keep up with. But when both players have a death ball, it's no longer about how quickly you can play the game anymore, and now it's about how well you can take a fight. Because whoever takes the fight better is going to win the game at this point. Alright, so let's see how many seconds goes by as the fight starts before neural happens. And this is how many seconds that goes by that you're fighting interceptors when you don't necessarily need to be. Because, one other thing, sorry, again, I'm talking a lot, and I know I'm trying to get a point across here. But every second that goes by that you're fighting interceptors, that you're not knurling, it could have been knurling his carriers when they're full of interceptors, and if you did that, if you knurl his carriers when they're full, you're actually using that DPS against his own army. So it like accelerates the damage of your army if you neural full carriers right off the bat, because not only do you save your Hydras from dying because they don't have to fight shitloads of interceptors all at once, but you also now use his own army against him at full power. Alright, so it starts at like 35 was when this fight started. 1435 is when the fight started. And you've neuraled one carrier so far, with the carrier's empty. And then more neurals start coming out now. And it's, again, it's really hard to get neurals off because of the location. So, what did I say? 35 was when it's, yeah. So 35 is basically when the fight started. So that was like a good 10 seconds after the fight had already begun that you fought interceptors, and then finally the neural started actually happening on the carriers. Which, again, it should be like 1 or 2. And it's 100% because... I know you were trying to neural because you did it, but the reason why it went like that is because of where you chose to take the fight.
Yeah, they had to walk too far. Or run around the edge.
Yeah, well, you just don't even have enough surface area. You have a really... Like, his army is all in an area where, like, you can't really run him down. And he could also... Like, let's just say hypothetically, too. You were to run down on the right, or sorry, on the left side of his nexus. You just ran straight into him, and you tried to like stutter step your Hydras and your Corruptors forward, and you'd be like, stutter, move, attack a carrier, move again, attack a carrier, move again, attack a carrier, and you're just trying to pick off all of his carriers. If you engage in a position like this, there is nothing stopping the Protoss from just doing something like, all right, I'm gonna fly a little bit to the left on the other side of the cliff, and I'm gonna make your units not be able to focus fire me again, because I can just keep you at range because of terrain. Just yeah, just try to always find good spots to engage, basically. Alright, we'll finish off this replay now. Alright, and yeah, that was good. Overall, like, you ended up winning the game. The reason why you ended up winning is because this guy did not use Templar. If there are no Templar in the army, that is when you should engage. That is the prime time for you to engage, because Infestor plus Hydra can overwhelm carrier, because again, the whole thing we just talked about. You neural the carriers, you eliminate you eliminate DPS from his own army by controlling it and then using it against him, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, just I would say to really improve your gameplay against people who play like in situations like this. Think in the back of your mind, Death Ball. If you have a Death Ball and he has a Death Ball, there's no multi-prong attacks going on. It's just either all or nothing in this next fight. Take your time. Try to always take a good fight in a position where you feel like you're going to have the advantageous position. And if you feel like you're not, and you're like, oh man, this fight's kind of fucked, and I'm going to probably die if I take the fight here, literally just back up. Like, move back. You don't have to take the fight. And stuff like that. Alright. That was a good first one. I want to do one game with you really fast. And this doesn't necessarily have to be against somebody else, but basically what I want to show you right now is I want to show you a build order that you could implement in your own games. This applies to every matchup too. More so Terran and Protoss, I guess. You can invite me, I guess. I can't invite you actually, because you have the privacy settings on.
Do I have to go back in the other way to add you again?
Just add me, and then you can promote me to leader, so I can just create a game. You'd have for me to be able to invite you, you'd have to go to options and into social and allow people who are not on your friends list to send you invites. But if you invite me, that also works. I can message you too, just in case you don't have my thing anymore.
There you go. I turned off the option thing.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a random game. just save this replay, just for future reference to like the best thing you can do. This is the way I would tell you to use this replay to your best advantage. Write down the times of when I do things in this game. So, like, the biggest thing to look at is look at how many drones I have at what time, and also look at where my scouting is at what time. And again, there's no opponent, so it's going to be a little weird, but just look at the clock with this. And I'll do a build that's something that you would like to. It's something that is safe for you. Something that it could work well in against Terran and Protoss alike.
Oh, yeah.
And then feel free to ask me any questions as well throughout this whole game. I don't mind answering.
Alrighty.
Yo, thank you for the sub, baby. I love you. Beasting! Alright, so 17 Overlord, always... I mean, sorry, 17 Hatch. Always a good time to throw it down. First Overlord, I always send it to the natural, like we were talking about, between the ramp and the natural. That's where my initial movement will go. I'll go back up to 17. I'm going to have you make a pool before a gas, because if you like to macro, it's actually it's actually better to build a pool slightly before your gas if you're going to be defensive, because it helps you get your queens out faster, and it also allows you to have zerglings faster in case you're the one getting all in.
Okay, so always 17, 17, 17?
Yeah, yeah.
More or less.
Yeah, pretty much. Just to give you a really standard build to just get used to. And then saturate with 3 gas as soon as it's done. We now have 16 on the mineral line, 3 on the gas. We're at 19 supply. I'm going to make another Overlord. Now I'm going to re-rally my hatcheries both to my natural. And notice how my second Overlord is sitting in front of my natural. I always do this because it really helps at spotting to see, am I going to get cannon rushed? Am I going to get bunker proxied? Are there going to be speedlings, or like not speedlings yet, but are there going to be zerglings running by? Because some people like to dodge the Overlord and run into your natural that way without you knowing about it until it's actually killing your drones or the hatchery or something like that. And now I'm at 90 gas, so I'm going to pull my guys off gas. And we made 4 lings for defense, and now we're just going back to droning. So we're going to drone until we have about 10 drones on this mineral line. And then we're going to put drones back on our gas and our main with new build drones. And I would say always take another queen at your natural too. Just like start one more, because this way you can have a queen just right off the bat early on in the game, not only for defense but also for creep spread.
I usually do or go up to 2 each. I don't know if that's
That's fine. That's good. As long as you're making a little bit extra. Your creep is actually not bad, so it's good. All right, now we have 10 drones on the natural. So with like our first inject that's popping off the main, I'm gonna make 3 more drones, and I'm literally gonna rally these eggs to the gas, and I'm just gonna resaturate that gas. And I will say this. Okay. I'm just gonna say, hypothetically, he has a natural. Your opponent went for a standard build. He's expanded as well. This is when you would be like, okay, time to take a 3rd base. And now you just keep injecting and keep making your drones and stuff like that. And this is when you can do something like make whatever you're comfortable with. Make a roach warren or a bathing nest. I'll just make a roach warren, okay? Just for the sake of an example. And now you have full saturation on the main and the natural. This is when you would take all of their gases between your main and your natural. And you could also start a 4th queen now. And the reason why you would want to start a 4th queen is because it's really good to always have 3 queens injecting all the time between main, natural, and 3rd. And then it's really good to always have a 4th queen at the very least to be creep spreading. If you don't plan on going for like a queen heavy build, it's just good to have this many queens. And now we are fully saturated on the main and the natural. I have 2 drones that are about to pop in the whatever it's called, in the main, to pop on the main mineral line. Now let's just say I'm like, okay, my opponent has a natural. He could attack me, maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of scared of an attack. I'm going to prepare myself for some type of a defense. So I make like 8 roaches. I make 8 roaches for the potential timing of getting attacked. And after I have 8 roaches, I'm still planning on macroing. Let's say I send an overlord in right now and I go, okay, what is he doing beyond what I've already seen? I go scout his base. If I see something that looks like an all-in coming, from this point, I'll type it. So you can see this again in reference for your game in the future. So I'm starting like a roach speed upgrade, and I'm going back to droning on my 3rd, because it looks, let's say he's passive. So we're droning our 3rd really fast. And our goal here is we have a little bit of an army, which is in front of my natural, to defend myself. And now we're going to try to drone my 3rd as quick as possible. And the second it's done being droned, we're going to immediately go back into units. And we'll make a Hydralisk then now too. What's up?
Sorry, I missed when you started the lair. Do you do that as soon as you get 100 gas again after putting guys back?
Exactly, yeah. Alright. Okay, so let's say an Overlord spotted, or like a Zergling or something spotted. Oh look, my opponent's taking a 3rd base. You would just, again, do the same rule of thumb we had before. Zerg stay +1 on base count. So you just take a 4th base. Do not have to saturate it, but you can start it. And once you're fully saturated, this is when you can start doing something like adding in your upgrades. We'll just do something really basic. We'll go Roach Hydra this game. So we're just macroing our asses off right now. We're macroing hard. And we're making roaches and hydras. And we'll look at the timer. Now we and army supply. So now you would want to look at if you were watching this replay for reference, look at the time of the game and look at my supply and how high it is. At 7 minutes, we're roughly around 140 supply.
Yeah, that's where I was. I think at the 9-minute mark, or 9.5 minutes.
Yeah, it's just seriously all about how quickly you can make an efficient economy. And if your opponent were to attack you now at this point, it doesn't even matter, because if you have full base saturation on 3 bases, every single game, just for now, for you, until you like do this for a while and get really used to it, don't ever go above 3 base saturation. Just make yourself a checkpoint to go, okay, every time I get 3 base, from that point on, I always make units, and then I'll just try to manage sending my drones from base to base to make them mine efficiently when bases mine out, etc., etc. But I won't make any drones beyond 3 base economy. Because most of your games will end in this phase. Alright, and now we're about to make another round of units here. Another round of overlords is popping off, another inject is popping off. And now 190 supply, 8 minutes. And now we are maxed out at we're maxed out at like 8 minutes and 10 seconds. And then we could just literally aim move him at this point. If nothing had happened yet, which is like that last game you just played, nothing actually really happened in the first 8 minutes of the game. You can now just aim move across the map and be like, all right, let's go attack with maxed army. And while you're attacking, you could focus on like, all right, I'm gonna make sure while I'm attacking, my bases, like my main, is getting oversaturated because mineral patches are being mined out. Let's transfer those drones. I'm gonna make sure none of my queens have a ton of energy. I'm gonna make sure they all, keep injecting, so I have a bunch of larvae. So let's just say hypothetically, let's pretend I got into a fight, and all my units are getting killed in this army versus army battle on the bottom of the map. But I'm doing damage to my opponent as well. If you macro while you're getting ready to do a fight and you lose a bunch of supply, at this stage of the game, you could do something like, oh look, I just lost 70 supply in this fight. I'm just gonna remax right now and remake almost all of it because I had so much larvae sitting there ready to go because I didn't neglect my macro. And that's basically it, man. That's for just the build order to use as reference. Just try to, once again, always use this as a timer reference and try to get as close to this as you can. And then you can always improve on things like, okay, this time, next game I play, I'm going to try and hit this amount of supply at this time, but I'm also going to try and spread my creep even faster this time, or stuff like that. It'll give you checkpoints to work towards, and just enhance overall your gameplay.
Okay.
All right. Let's do another one. One more replay, or one more. You could play a live game if you want, and I could watch you live. Whatever you prefer.
If someone's available, let's try a live game. If not, I can go replay.
All right. So, what matchup would you like to play? And what diamond opponent, right?
Yeah, platinum or diamond opponent, or
Okay. Any
even low masters. I'm not that fussy. As long as there's a learning potential, then I don't care.
All right. Any league preference? Or I mean, sorry. Any race preference?
Not ZvZ.
Okay. Yo, guys, if there are any Terran or Protoss of the probably diamond range, I guess either high plat, low master, or just diamond preferably, let me know. Platinum Protoss, diamond Zerg. I'm looking for a Terran or a Protoss here as well. I'm diamond tier 3 Protoss. Alright, yo, Hayden, you want to play? And you don't have to do anything specific, Hayden. Just do whatever the hell you want to do, and it's better to do it that way than to premeditate a build, because it makes the person been learning have to scout and understand what's going on. Okay. So Hayden, do you know how to? Actually, Hayden, when you get on, just do the same thing I told Tawl to do, where you just open up the Grandmaster ladder and you can just message me, and then I'll invite you to the party. And I'll go ahead and get the game started right now. All right. Anything else right now, Tawl, that you have any questions on, or anything you want to? Any thoughts?
No, I think that's pretty good. I got to practice this up.
Okay.
Get my fingers back to how they used to be. I'm old and fat now, so they don't respond as well as they used to.
Are you 34 right now?
33. 34 in December.
Okay. Yeah, I figured your birth year was your ID. So you're the same year as my brother. All right, I'll make this map. I'll go referee. And yep. When you guys are both ready, just let me know.
I'm ready whenever. I'm just going to close the stream down here so I don't see nothing on the other monitor here.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. Good luck. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna mostly watch you play this one, but I will, and we'll talk about it mostly after. But I will try to give you quick, little snippets of information if I see something that I think you should do. That's important.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. I know I haven't been talking to the stream that much, but it's because I'm doing a coaching lesson. This is going to be the last game of the coaching lesson, though, and I'll probably be doing it for another, like, I'll probably give him some, like, 5-minute, 10-minute information afterwards just to make sure he knows what's going on.
I already screwed up.
It's all good, man. It's all G. You got this. If you ever go 14 drone, or 14 overlord, do an extractor trick right now. That's the way to fix that, because what it does is it prevents you from supply capping, or sorry, it prevents your larva from capping, because if you just wait for the overlord, then you'll have 3 larvae sitting there for like 4 seconds, which is bad, because the larva doesn't generate past 3.
So you said if I know the race, I don't have to scout right away?
Yeah, overlord is totally fine. Just send the overlord where we talked about. And then always, once again, scout natural for if they expanded first, and then, regardless if they did or did not, poke the ramp and see what's going on at the ramp. And if it looks like there's nothing that's going to kill you right away, leave your overlord there for a little while. You can just sit there. Like an example of this is when I play against Terrans and I scout that they're no natural and they're 3-racks reapering me, I just literally leave my overlord there the whole time. Because if they want to make Marines, it's going to reduce the reaper count anyways. They're not going to do that. And it will tell me if they're going to make even more than 3 barracks or if they're going to actually expand behind it. Stuff like that. Don't be afraid to lose your first overlord, basically. Yo, Sunny bro, thank you for the sub, dude. I love you, man. I'll be leaving the crazy soon to watch the stream regularly again. Thanks for the amazing content as always. Thank you, dude. Sorry, I'm not really going too ham on the interaction with chat, guys, because I'm doing a coaching lesson at the moment, but it's almost over. Gotta make sure I don't keep the mic muted when I actually tell them what to do. Alright, so make sure to monitor your gas. Go ahead and pull them off. Send them to your natural, though, just because you'll be at 19 now. There, perfect. And start circling speed. And then always make like 4 lings at this stage when you're blind and you don't actually know what's going on, because it'll keep you safe from like random little pressures. And this applies to Protoss and Terran. Alright, you see he did expand, and you see he's got... I would honestly go further into the main. I would just go for it. You'd want to see what is actually going on in the main with that Overlord. So you see double gateway, and he's chrono boosting 2 gateways. Automatically, what I would say is I would go, okay, well, my opponent is about to be aggressive, and he's probably going to make a Depths. The Depths are the most common units to fight against, so I would... As soon as I see them spawn, which is right now, I would make probably like 12 lings. And I would not ever fight them off creep. I would always defend myself, and I would also even take a 3rd base. Because what you can do is you can defend these Adepts, and you also just saw a Stargate. You could defend these Adepts right now cost efficiently on creep with lings and queens. You honestly don't even need a spine crawler. And I would take a 3rd. And okay, you have enough lings. You have 20. Okay, 20 lings is totally good. Now I would go back to droning, and I would saturate my gas again. You never want to overmake units. So drone up, and as soon as this round of drone spawns, or you can take it now, it's okay. You're making drone, so it's all good. You can take your gas in the main as well, and re-rally your main hatchery now to your main mineral line, because now you're going to start losing drones off the mineral line since you're saturating gases. And then at this stage, you can poke around with your Overlord. You did see a Stargate. I would go back and double confirm that right now. I would go, is he making an Oracle? Because you can see what he's making in the Stargate. It shows a hologram of the unit. You could see if it's an Oracle, Void Ray, whatever, and you could poke in one more time, and you could even leave your Overlord in there just to see what else is going on. Like now you actually see double Stargate, and you see a Twilight Council. So what this would make me think is I would go, okay, he's probably going to do some weird Adept or maybe like Archon type stuff with heavy Stargate play. So Hydras would be a great unit here. Just watch your economy. Like, perfect, you're saturating your gases on your natural. You got 1 drone down on the natural gas, and you're take the main gas as well. And also add this to your build too. As soon as you get 2 fully saturated mineral lines and you have a 3rd base as well, make a macro hatch somewhere in your main or something like that. Just make a macro hatch somewhere. It'll really help you at managing your larva and managing your resources. Like right now, your primary goals, since you got a good scout, you saw a Voider, you saw 2 Stargates, you saw a couple gates, and he's going Adepts. Right now, this is your primary goal. Spend creep and saturate your bases. If you get full, now that you know he's not being insanely aggressive right off the bat, he could do a timing, but he's not all-inning you right off the bat. You have time here, a window, to saturate as quick as possible. And if you do that and then you start making Hydras, you eliminate the window of getting killed, and then you basically will overwhelm him the rest of the game at that point. So you're almost there. You're missing 1 drone on the main, and you're missing just gas on your natural. Or sorry, gas on your 3rd, but it's just coming up now. So you need 7 more drones. Perfect, you got it saturated. I would say make a Hydraless Den. Hydras are a super easy mode against Protoss. It's really a well-rounded unit. And you just saw he took a 3rd base. So this would be your time to go, okay, cool, my opponent's taking a 3rd, he's macroing. I have time to build my shit. Take a 4th base as well, though. You would always want to stay a base up. And then do you have a Hydra Den going? You do. And now this is when you would go, okay, I need to get my Hydras You're fully saturated. You actually have oversaturation on the third. You should have made the hydrogen a little bit faster, but it's okay. Just make hydras as soon as you can, and basically max on whatever you want. Hydraling, Roach Hydra, whatever you feel comfortable with. But just do something with hydras though, because he has Stargate. Also, you can send your queens back to injecting now, just because you'll have hydras popping out, which will easily be able to defend yourself. And retake a fourth base. Nice, you are good. And then focus a lot of your attention right now on creep spread. And also, I would say start like an infestation pit, because you don't know 100% if this hydra attack is going to work, and you don't know if he's doing something like we just saw a second ago with the sky toss. So you want to be prepared with potential infestors if you need them. You're going crazy on the expansions, and I like it. It's okay. I don't disapprove of that. Just don't over drone though. So yeah, you can just be patient. Just keep making hydras. You're at 8 minutes right now, and you're at 129 supply. So there's definitely room for improvement, but you're doing well so far. Nice, you're picking up some voids. And then be careful with the army though. You never want to... You are killing voiders, which is great, but I would probably retreat at that point, because you don't want to go blindly across the map with only a small chunk of your army. Alright, so now you see your opponent's army is adept and mass air units. I'm going to ask you a question. I know it's going to be distracting, but what do you think would be a good army composition to go against this?
Banelings, probably.
That works, yeah. It's either you have two choices. Banelings with hydras, or you have roaches with hydras. You need something to be in front of the hydras to wreck the adepts that makes it cost efficient for you. And the reason why you won that fight right there is because you just had so much. You macroed well enough to just overpower, even though your army wasn't the best suited to deal with it. And that's what I always tell people when I say micro isn't actually as important as macro, because even if you make the wrong units, if you just have enough of the wrong units, you'll still win the fight. And adepts actually, if you have 1-to-1, adepts beat hydras 1 versus 1. So that would have been scary if he had as big of an army as you. Infestors would also work too, honestly. That's another unit that would work, because if you actually fungal growth the clump of adepts, and he didn't already have a phase on your hydras, you could actually lock him out in fungals out of range to attack you, and you could kill him that way too. But some form of something to reduce the damage the hydras take is what you need against adepts. And just keep focusing on your macro, keep injecting, make sure your macro hatch is hotkeyed, all that stuff, and just try and max out. Also, I'm going to give you a tip right now. I know it might feel awkward, but put your infestors on a different control group than remove them from your main control group. A lot of Zergs do this. They leave it all in the same group, and what will happen is when you attack move forward, most of your infestors will just walk forward and die because they don't have an auto attack. It'll be really awkward getting used to that, but it will help you so much more in the future. And just, once again, really try to... This would be, if I were you, this would be my thought process. You just killed his army. You have a good economy. Right now, scout for a 4th base. Do not let your opponent take another base. If he has 3 bases, we know this already. That's okay. Don't let there be another base going up on you. Prevent that at all costs, and you just scouted 1. So that would be your time to go attack. You just killed his army. Hit the most vulnerable location, which is the 4th. Nice fungal. That's good. Probably pull back, I would say. You're going to start getting thinned out a little bit. Possibly. It's getting close. You can just regroup, basically. You don't have to run away completely. Just regroup in the middle of the map with your reinforcements. And don't forget, you... investors are good, but it... I guess. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's working. I actually like that you use infestors already. A lot of Zergs don't use infestors at all, and that unit is so insanely good.
I'm trying to get better with them. I'm not very good with spellcaster.
Yeah, no,
mainly because you have to have 2 groups.
The fact that you're using them now is really impressive, because most Zergs don't even use infestors in Group Master League. Alright, now that base is really vulnerable. You should not overextend. I would say keep killing the base, but don't just run up into his natural ramp or something like that. Just kill the base and do it at a safe vantage point. So you can control the ramp if he comes down. You can kill stuff if it warps in, as it warps in. Just don't go all the way up the ramp. Yeah, I like your backing up is good. Killing this base is important, because now you're starving him out. And once again, I would say go back to that exact same process we just talked about a second ago. Scout for a new 4th. He might have something somewhere else. If you starve him out, you win automatically. And every second that goes by, while you're like having a moment to just breathe here, like right now, spread your creep one more time. And then you could go beyond. Like, what tech do you think would be good to add in? If you can't break your opponent, let's say he just keeps defending and defending, and you never actually break him from this point, what do you think would be good to do to add in to your army to break him?
Ultras, probably?
Ultra could work.
Have the upgrade.
Ultra could work, yeah, because well, the only reason why I would say that is because he doesn't have immortals. He doesn't actually. We haven't seen a single immortal yet all game, so Ultra could work.
Nidus?
Nidus could work too. You could Nidus his main. That's you're being creative right now. It's good, but there are a lot of ways you could do it. But Ultra could work because he doesn't have the right comp to deal with it. Nidus his main could work because then you pull him out of position and you could just keep doing cost efficient damage. Broodlord could work because you could siege him from a vantage point and force him to fight into you. You have a lot of Swarmos could work because you could siege him again. There's a lot of things you could do to break him beyond what you've already done. Just what I'm trying to make you think about is don't ever get in the mindset when you're ahead to just slam your head against the wall and throw your army away over and over. It could work. Like sometimes you could win the game by just slamming your head against the wall and killing them, even if it's cost inefficient. But it's always good to always have a backup plan to go, if I don't break him, I do this. And now that he's going Immortal Archon, I would not recommend Ultra. Even though you're killing his army, which is good, you're probably going to win the game now. You don't need the backup plan. It's always good to have one, though, so you don't just lose if it doesn't work, like your first plan. Nice, well done, man. Good job. Alright.
I didn't get Burrow.
It's okay. Burrow does help a lot at keeping infestors alive, but it's okay. But that's, yeah. It's always really, really important, just to, like we were talking about a second ago. Always have something else you're thinking about that is on the horizon, like something that could happen and might be needed in the future. Because let's just say I'll give you an example. Let's say your opponent did something like he added in High Templars to his army and he has Storm now, and you walk into his army with Hydra Ling and he storms all of your army, and then he just as soon as he wipes out a ton of your Lings and he really cripples a lot of your Hydras, he phases Adepts forward, and now he just kills all their like weakened Hydras. Or another example could be he has Disruptors and he gets a few really good hits and he blows up a shitload of your army, and then he cripples, like he kills the rest. Or he has Colossus and he just swipes your army to death because Hydra Ling is not the greatest against Colossus. Stuff like that. It's always good to think about stuff like that and go, if my opponent actually defends this, what does he currently have, and what would be a good transition for me to deal with that in the future if I need it. And one of the best ways you can think about that, one of the best ways to make your brain work correctly and start thinking in a good way about that is to think about what your units can do and think about what his units can do in a really simple way. So if you go, okay, what does he have? He has Adepts, he has Immortals, and he has a couple of Archons. What can those units do? They can wreck a ground army if I run into it and I just wash up against it and it owns me, basically. What is Archon, Immortal, Adept really weak against? And I would say it's really weak against air, basically. Maybe not necessarily Mutalisk, because Archons and Mutas have the same range, but any type of unit that has long range air that can shoot the ground, and Archon actually has short range, so the entire army he has could not hit Broodlords, basically. That'd be like a hard counter to his army, is if you actually got to the point to where, yeah, sure, you're attacking him with Hydras, you're attacking him with Infestors, you're trying to make it work, but if you don't break him, and he just keeps hanging on and hanging on, if you have that backup plan to go, okay, well, I'm just going to go Broodlords eventually, and after like the third fight we have, now the next fight, in fight number 4, I have 10 Broodlords flying at his base, and he still is on Adept, Archon, Immortal. He loses the game automatically now because you made a tech transition that was it was an educational choice of units that it was a smart choice, and it hard countered his army. Stuff like that. It like same thing with like if you're against a Terran and he's going bio and you're going, let's say you're a Mutiling Bane kind of guy. If you're going Mutiling Bane all day and he's going bio all day, it's not always a good choice to just say, you know what, I'm never going to transition. I'm going Ling Bane Muta all game and I'm going to win. It's always good to have a backup plan that is more powerful than the last one that you just did, which would be something like, oh, I'm going to go Mutiling Bane, and in the background I'm going to go Ultralisk Cavern, and I'm going to keep getting upgrades. And if I don't manage to win the game on Mutiling Bane, the next time I remax, once I have it all done, is going to be with like 12 Ultralisk, and now he just auto dies. Stuff like that. It's always good you just need a backup plan. Go ahead.
Sorry. In terms of the last game I played there, before I was pressuring his 4th, would it be a better idea than to build all my tech buildings?
When you have time. So the first fight you did, where you poked the ramp, like I said, okay, go scout the 4th. You did. You saw he has a 4th base. You moved over to attack it. You killed a lot of his units, but then he did a huge warp in, and you pulled back, and then you only had, let's say, like 10 Hydras over there left, and like maybe 1 or 2 Infestors. And I told you, okay, regroup with your army in the middle of the map. That would be a good time to go, okay, what is he warping in right now? Shitloads of Adepts. Okay, and what does he have behind the Adepts? Like, no Protoss is ever just going to go 100% Adept late game and make it work. Adepts are only good at early game, if that's the only unit they make, or it's only good at absorbing damage for stronger units. Because the unit by itself is pretty shitty the higher supply both players get. So if you think to yourself, you go, okay, he's got Archons, he does have a Robo, and he's making Mass Adept. What can I do to make sure I am going to have a superior army here? We talked about earlier, you were saying Banelings. Banelings would have been a great choice, because you could actually run into all the Adepts of the Banelings and immediately kill them with Banes, and then your Hydras just overwhelm the Archon Immortal. Roaches would also be good, because if his army is primarily Adept, Roaches you don't even need a lot. You could just have like 15 Roaches in your front line, and they would basically be the units in the front line taking all the damage while your Hydras kill off everything behind it. Broodlords, again, would be like, that's honestly like the supreme army in my opinion to deal with a ground-based Protoss. The time you would do the tech would be when I told you to regroup. You would then go back to your base while you're regrouping and build your tech and go hive and do all that shit. It's when every time you're not actually having to micro a fight, you have time to not stare at your army and do macro elements, whether it be teching up or creep spreading or fixing saturation. And yeah, all that kind of stuff.
All right, I guess one more question before I let you go.
Yeah.
The best way of practicing the build, would you suggest doing kind of what you did, just open a blank game and keep doing it for muscle memory, or would you just keep playing random people and hope they don't cheese? Or
You can do it a few times if you just want to like try to get comfortable with the core element of balancing creep spread, injecting, and making drones, and making sure your saturation is proper. You can do like I would say a few custom games to just feel like you're somewhat comfortable with it, because definitely when you start getting into a competitive scenario where now everything you just learned has to be executed properly at the exact moment in time, or else you could lose the game. It's much harder to execute properly if the pressure's on. So you could totally practice it a few times before you put it into a competitive setting. But I would say don't do that. If you want to practice it by yourself a couple times, don't do it for too long, because it's actually going to be... There's nothing like competitive setting, basically. You can do shitloads of preparation by yourself, and it will never prepare you fully for executing it competitively in an actual game. So try, if you want to practice by yourself, do it, that's fine, but try to implement in a real game as fast as you can. And try to just make it work with what your opponent does to you all the time. And the build might get altered here and there, it's fine. Just think to yourself, though, the biggest rule of thumb if you're not sure what's going on, always try to have either a Zergling or an Overlord scouting your opponent's bases, and try to be doing this at least like once every minute, up until the point where you guys are at 3 bases. Once you're beyond 3 bases, it's not nearly as important anymore, because the game goes into a full macro game and you guys can both max out at that point, and it just becomes a clusterfuck, basically, where shit goes crazy, depending on how you guys are playing. But up to the point where you guys are not 3 bases yet, if you see something like, okay, my opponent took a natural pretty quick, you know now automatically he's playing greedy. He's playing to macro. He's not doing some weird ass like 1 base timing. And if you, once again, you see he has a natural. Now let's say you either have a Zergling or an Overlord spotting the third, and you go, okay, now he's taking a third like 2 minutes or a minute or two after he took his natural. It's not like super late. Then you know he's macroing even harder. He is playing a macro game. But every single minute that goes by that he doesn't have another base on top of what he already has, you have to you have to think about, what's he doing with that time? There is no player that's going to sit there for like 3 minutes on 2 bases and never take a third, and then just go, you know what, I'm actually going to take a third now because I feel like that's a good thing to do. They're going to have a lot of units, is what that means. And you have to keep that in mind.
okay.
And the best, another again, a really good way to determine this, if you're still unsure, is the second you get a layer, just make an overseer, and then get in there and scout his base. Or even get Overlord speed if you're really, really, hesitant and you're always unsure. You're like, I never know what's going on. You could just add Overlord speed into your build. And the time you could take it would be the build we already have right now. Instead of taking a layer at your first 100 gas, once you start mining gas again, get Overlord speed before that, and then just spend an Overlord in, and it'll give you a scout about 30 seconds before an Overseer would.
Okay.
So that could be your fallback if you're just really unsure. And don't be afraid to sack an Overlord either. Always sack an Overlord if you're really unsure. And the other thing too, this is something I want to stress on a little bit, because a lot of Zergs do this. They like to salvage the Overlords a lot, which is understandable. You don't want to lose an Overlord. But if your opponent does not seem like they're making anti-air right away, like your opponent's not making Marines or Stalkers right off the bat, don't be afraid to leave your Overlord in their base for longer. Just like literally sit it on their production. Because you're going to do one of two things if you do that. You're either going to see everything they do, and you're going to be like, well, cool, I have a free scout on everything you're doing, and I know everything that's going on, which is great. Or two, you're going to make them alter their build if they didn't want to make something that would kill an Overlord. Now they have to, which is going to slow down the build that they wanted to do in the first place. And the only people who are really going to want to kill an Overlord right away are most likely, it's not always, but most likely Someone who's going to do some type of pressure to you is going to want to kill your Overlord fast because they don't want you to scout it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, someone who doesn't give a shit if you see what they're doing is probably going to macro. They're like, oh, whatever. I don't want to alter my build. I'm going to macro hard. Fuck it. There's an Overlord in my base. I'm not... Whatever. And they're playing standard. Yeah. Anyways.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
I think I've taken up enough of your time.
It's all good. Once again, just remember, if you don't know what my YouTube is, you can just scroll down on my Twitch page, and it's right there as a link right there for my YouTube. If you just click it, this VOD will be up probably tomorrow on my YouTube, and then you can always you can even like bookmark it, and you can always go back to it as future reference to go, okay, what did he say again at this point? I can't remember, and I want to watch the whole thing again just as I play a game, just to like let the information really sink in. So it makes the most out of your coaching lesson. You can always go back and use it as reference.
I'm sure I'll harass you in a week or so after I have a chance to play it.
Yeah, it's all good. Take your time. Do whatever you need, man. No rush. And good luck.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry again, headaches earlier on.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. I was in the middle of getting 12 pulled, and I was like, fuck! I'm sorry if I, made you feel bad in any way. You're totally fine.
Nah. It was a sarcastic comment at an inappropriate time, that's all. So
Yeah.
misconstrued easily.
But really quick before I go, I didn't ask you this. Do you have any other questions before we end this coaching lesson?
No, I think I'm good. I got a lot to practice here.
Okay. Good.
I'm sure there'll be 15 questions afterwards, but right now I just got to absorb this.
Okay, sounds good, man. Good luck. Thanks for doing a coaching lesson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, man. See you. All right. Good shit. Good shit. Good shit. Good shit.